October was Domestic Abuse Awareness Month, and on brand, I'm late, as always. I don't generally do content around specific months because I can't keep track. I'm not good at that. But this one has come up a few times just in the past couple of weeks, and I'm all about shedding the light on areas of darkness around the clearance process, and this is certainly one. So I want to highlight a couple of things, myths and issues around domestic abuse, partner violence within the security clearance process. According to the National Institutes of Health, 1 in 4 women, 1 in 7 men will be affected by some form of physical violence in a domestic relationship. It hits way more folks than you realize, and it's worth talking about because it can cause stigma, shame, issues in reporting, and all of that comes along and around the security clearance process. So the first one is that filing for an order of protection will negatively affect somebody's security clearance. Personal experience with this one and being dissuaded from filing for an order of protection, saying that it will be your fault that someone loses their clearance eligibility. I just want to punch somebody in the face right now when I hear that one. Not true. A single person cannot actually deny or revoke the clearance of another person. There is a process at play here, complicated, confusing, and painful as it can sometimes be. So you as an individual should never be dissuaded from filing for an order of protection because you're going to make somebody else lose their livelihood, job, etc., etc. A lot of issues around orders of protection. We do get questions about those over at Clearance Jobs blog and our forum. Certainly that can come up. Neighborhood spats. It's not always domestic partner issues, but again, orders of protection in and of themselves will not cause a clearance to be revoked. It's going to get flagged under continuous vetting, but this is a good chance to highlight an alert is not the same thing as an adjudicated decision. So getting an alert on your record is not a bad thing. I think we need to destigmatize that across, especially as we're going into the public trust workforce. An alert is not a bad thing. An alert is let's look at that. So if you had an order of protection filed against the wrong person and your name somehow gets flagged under that, if something happens, if there is a domestic issue and you can mitigate that and show, okay, this is what actually happened, this is how this played out, you will not get a clearance denied or revoked. And trying to blame a victim and tell them not to file an order of protection because it's going to affect somebody's livelihood, it makes a lot of sadness in my heart. So don't buy that. And again, if you're impacted by an order of protection that was made against someone who had a vendetta against you, that will be mitigated in the process. A flag is not necessarily a bad thing. Second way it comes up, I've talked about this before over at Clearance Jobs, is that the personal subject interview is going to dredge up things that you might not want to talk about, might not like talking about. Personal subject interview, by and large, intrusive. There are federal investigative standards, but those are applied by people, and people are fallible, and people do things wrong. And so within that personal subject interview, you might have an invasive process, maybe more invasive than it should be. The irony is then people will tell you not to share. It's your fault as the subject that you're getting grilled because you shared too much in the investigation. No, it isn't. It is by its nature an intrusive process. Investigators are doing a job. You're doing a job trying to get a clear job. But what I say is, if you know that, be mentally prepared. It is okay to have a support person with you during a personal subject interview. Having an attorney with you is going to look shady, so maybe you don't do that. But just knowing you're doing that personal subject interview, and if it's Zoom and you can have a support person there to kind of, deconflict, de-stress after the interview, that can help you out. Or even having somebody in the room if you're in a place, and again, if you don't feel comfortable talking about your narrative alone in a room with an investigator, you do not have to do that. So again, just knowing those resources and supports are out there is really big. Again, the security clearance process is intrusive. Domestic abuse violence often lives in the shadows. So let's get it out of the shadows. Know that there is help, there is support. Don't let a messy past or what seems like a mess that you're already in prevent you from pursuing a national security career. National security work needs a variety of people in it. And again, for me, anyone getting dissuaded from pursuing this kind of work especially because of domestic abuse violence, all the hearts. There is help out there. So don't, again, hide in the shadows thinking that, hey, if you come forward, you're going to create a messy issue that's going to have to get dealt with. The messy issue already exists. Bringing it into the light is where the help comes. So call, get help, call me. I'm out here. I love you. Hang in there.